Welcome to the hard sell, where the stick in the swill bucket rattles back, and where it's time for another...
Have a break.
A couple of breaks, actually, from 1985, and that most glorious part of the week, Saturday morning. The Saturday in question being August the 31st. If you've watched my 6-part documentary on the subject, watch and smile, and if you haven't, you bastard, I absolutely demand that you do so, along with everything else on bobthefish.org.uk. But if you have watched it, then you'll know that the summer is something of a holiday period for the classic Saturday morning kids shows, with the big names like Saturday Superstore cooling their heels in favour of various weak sauce replacements. At this particular moment in time, over on the BBC, they're at the arse end of the penultimate run of the wholly unremarkable Saturday Picture Show, starring Maggie Philbin, Woo Gary Davies, and Four-Eyed Mapkin's Yellowcoat Mark Curry, in place of Saturday Superstore. Here on ITV, the situation's more complicated, what with the various regional stations being at least theoretically able to show whatever they damn well liked. But we're definitely in an interregnum period here. The 5th series of the legendary number 73 having ended 6 weeks earlier, and the slot not to be filled again for another fortnight or so with the debut of TX, hosted by Sue Robbie and for some reason Tony Slattery from Granada Studios in Manchester. I don't know what was on in any other region, if not the same thing. Well, one thing's for certain. In the Yorkshire television region at least, on August the 31st, 1985, they countered the might of Curry and Davies with the film Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines.
Aviation today is that too many...
Not strictly a kids' film, but certainly kid-friendly, and possibly the most entertaining thing at that point, short of not watching television at all. According to the Radio Times listing, Gary was talking to Madness, Maggie Philbin was entertaining Blancmange, and Mark was exploring Blackpool Zoo's kitchen. BBC Two was showing an OU programme about Rust, and Channel 4 was still asleep. Bloody students. So there's a decent chance of 1 million or 2 kiddie-wink eyes being pointed at the screen while this is on, and more than a few of their parents as well. So, what delights would the sprocklets of 1985 be commanded to buy? Let us find out. Why don't we just do that one thing, eh?
Hi, I'm a little Pritt Stick, and I'm great for sticking paper and card, honest.
So we start out with something to keep your kids from boredom during the later rain-sodden days of the summer holidays, when the start of school looms ever closer and it starts to feel like every day is Sunday. Glue! The humble Pritt Stick, the original glue stick, was still relatively innovative, having been invented a mere 16 years earlier, but it was already omnipresent, to the point where the term Pritt Stick is used to refer to any old glue sticks, and that's despite these actively off-putting adverts, featuring a disturbingly ingratiating anthropomorphisation of the bloody things, with a voice like a simpering Alan Bennett.
I work just like a lipstick, just like this, so I can stick really quickly and never make a mess. I'm great for pictures, parcels, cards, albums, all sorts of things. How can you manage without me?
I don't trust that thing an inch. I'm pretty sure it has an ulterior motive for wanting to infiltrate your home. It's definitely going to sneak into your bedroom at night. But I don't think it's going to knife you to death or anything. No, I think it'll just climb on top of the wardrobe and just watch you sleep. Just watch you. All night.
Give a home to a little Pritt Stick.
Oh, go on.
Honey Monster's mind isn't on the three-legged race.
I can smell the honey.
It's the second age of the Honey Monster. They're still using the original hunchbacked prop-forward design, but Henry McGee as his mummy is nowhere to be seen, although he can be heard, which actually kind of fucks up the slogan.
I can see the sugar puffs. Give me the honey.
Possibly this advert, or a longer version, was made a year earlier to capitalise on the Olympics. It does seem to have been cut down from something, although I doubt it was very much more coherent in full.
Give
sugar puffs from Quaker.
Tell them about the honey. Yummy.
Without McGee's live-action suffering, the whole setup kind of feels like a low-rent Monster Munch, which isn't really what Quaker are going for. So within a couple of years, McGee will be out altogether in favour of a new, happening, hyperkinetic quasi-magazine format pairing Honey Monster with John Cooper Clarke, which I still can't quite believe happened. It's a bit like if, instead of Frank Muir fronting those fruit and nut adverts, Cadbury's had hired Heathcote Williams, which they should have.
Tell them about the honey. Yummy.
Well, this one ain't for the kids. Not in the same sense, anyway. The main demographic for a film like this, in a slot like this, is pre-11 plus children, and possibly their parents. So it's not too surprising to see an advert for a bank mixed in with adverts for arts and craft supplies and sugary breakfast cereals. But this bank advert isn't aimed at the parents, and it certainly isn't aimed at the kiddywinks.
Undergrad, employee, bank for free, at TSB. Speed bank card, your check card. There's no charge at TSB.
This is 1985, the acme of the Thatcher-Reagan-Lawson economy. Yuppies rule the world, and banks are starting to come up with ways to catch them early. Like NatWest's famous piggy bank scheme, which really was aimed at quite smalls. Or more often, this kind of thing for teens and students, to get them inducted into the capitalist system right from the nanosecond they depart the mandatory educational one. And it uses all the techniques advertisers thought appealed to mid-80s teens. Dramatic lighting, exaggerated props, the occasional Dutch angle, some sort of vaguely pop-like song, and slightly older signifiers of the age, like nighttime cityscape backdrops, and neon sign fetishisation. All they can think of to tempt the kids in practice, however, is the usual set of R-price vouchers, or Virgin Megastore vouchers, and a free magazine, TS Beat. It was almost certainly physically painful to read if you were an actual 18-year-old.
On top sounds. These are free at TSB. And later, when you want a home, wear your bank to fix the loan.
TSB were hardly alone in this, though. They were all at it in the mid to late 80s. At least TSB didn't try and rap.
Listen, lay your cards on the table. Hey, going places or moving today. Whatever the changes that you're making, make sure it's profits that you're taking.
They're the bank that likes to say groovy.
Oh, look at that funny man, Super Mr. Potato Head.
And the age bracket falls another decade.
You can make a funny potato head with Super Mr. Potato Head.
I never had a potato head, and to be honest was never entirely certain of the appeal. You could put all these different eyes and noses and things on him, but then what? It seems more like a starting point than an end in itself. I was a terrible child, as you can see. Also, is it me, or is there something vaguely menacing about this little girl and her song?
Hat sizes and funny noses, arms that bend in so many poses. I like you funny man.
Yeah, I like you funny man. I like you because you do as you're told. You're whoever I want you to be. If I tell you to stick your hand in your eye socket, you do it. And you smile. Unless I decide to turn your mouth upside down. Yeah, I like you. You ain't ever about to lay me down. You're the only one around here I can trust.
Mr. Potato Head from Play School.
Reliant owners Michaels of Selby are buying used Reliant Robins and Rialtos this week.
Ah, the Rialto, the forgotten replacement for the original Reliant Robin. It was shit. But then you knew that. This is a painfully local advert, literally consisting of a single slab of cardboard lying on a tray beneath a rostrum camera for 30 seconds, with a voiceover dubbed on. That voice belongs to the legendary Redvers Kyle, one of ITV's longest-serving announcers, having started out on Rediffusion in 1956, moving to YTV when Rediffusion was no more, and finally retiring in 1993, having become, over a quarter of a century, the definitive voice of Yorkshire. But even Redvers can't sum up much enthusiasm for your local Reliant dealer, even though this is an unusual case where they want to buy off you. And let's face it, no one else is going to take that poxy oversized wheelbarrow off your hands. And although Redvers can't say it out loud, the tone of his voice basically implies, for God's sake, make some damn scratch off it while you can. It's maybe your only chance.
So don't delay, ring today, and let Michaels of Selby buy your three-wheeler now. Inside Look In, you can
Oh, he has more to say.
meet Super Grand Robin of Sherwood, Street Hawk and sports star Boris Becker. Catch up with the latest issue of Look In now.
Specifically that they still make Look In magazine. No one's buying it anymore, though. It had started in the early 70s as the Junior TV Times, full of interviews and crosswords and pin-ups, and especially comic strips, all based around ITV's children's programming of the Times. It was wildly popular for a while, but by 1985 the likes of Smash Hits and Just 17 were much more fashionable. It did manage to last almost another decade, though, only finally going under in 1994. And they had the comfort during that time of watching multiple attempts by the BBC to do the same thing, crash and burn.
There's loads of fun in the new BBC Fast Forward. A chance to win 5,000 film tickets and prove you're a genius at work with this free door hanger. EastEnder Ian Beale says I'm no Jason Donovan. Check it out for yourself with our Jason poster. Going live, Philip and Sarah reveal the secrets. And who's tops on TV? Find out in our Fast Forward survey. With cartoons galore and Kylie's Top 10, the new Fast Forward out Tuesday.
Other bollocks are available.
Catch up with the latest issue of Look In now.
I'm going to go on and do the next commercial break from the film as well, because I just don't care. I changed my mind.
It's morning in the Hart family nursery. Wakey, wakey, time to get up.
Well, it's a product of the Reagan era for you. A rival to Barbie, albeit from the same company. And instead of having as its central characters some tanned, fit, ludicrously proportioned Californian teens, reconfigures them as a middle-class suburban nuclear family. From Pittsburgh or somewhere, I expect.
Into the bath, kids. Oh no! Dad washes behind their ears. Splish, splash.
They don't even have names. Just Mom and Dad and 2.4 kids. Family values. This is the bulk of your life, kids. Get used to it now.
Time for bed. Night-night.
Apparently these kids were pretty popular in the latter half of the 80s, at least in America. And then they vanished completely in the early 90s, after Dad's return from Jahaliba and his controversial statements on the subject of the alleged Gulf War syndrome, which he claimed had left him largely unfit for work.
The Hart family, new from Mattel.
Wow, they really wanted you to get on with some arts and crafts, didn't they? Here's a counter-offer from probably the most famous Pritt Stick other than Pritt Stick, Yoo-Hoo.
This is Yoo-Hoo Stick Rescue Mission. We have an SOS. Children in difficulty.
Also, the Death Star is moving into position above Alderaan, if you're at all interested in... No? You're going for the Earth, kids. Okay.
Stand by for rescue with Yoo-Hoo Stick. 3, 2, 1.
Star Wars might have ended, in theory, 2 years earlier, but the whole products in space trope of advertising, especially for children-centric products like this, still has a few miles on the clock.
On stick!
Stick launch, Commander!
They still sound disappointed. Oh, Christ, not another one! Every time something falls off something else, they chuck one of these at us. We got hundreds of the fuckers. We're running out of room for food and fuel. Leave us alone, you space bastards.
Yoo-Hoo Stick. Fast, clean, effective.
Technically, they should be pronouncing it Uhu, because that's how its German inventor said it. But then under that principle, we should be calling Lidl Lidl. And we don't do that either. Incidentally, happy Brexit Day. Sorry, Europe.
Yoo-hoo stick from the Yoo-hoo Task Force. By the power of Grayskull, I give you free action stickers.
Did I just fall asleep inside Lou Scheimer's head?
Hey, I got all 6 by the power of Shreddies.
Okay, I'll see if I can pass this. The advertising mascots for Shreddies at this point were some 50 throwback crows. And their shtick, apart from Elvis impersonations, was to enthuse about the square shape of the cereal. Possibly hence the shape of the bowls. As for the off-model He-Man, he might be a symptom of the show not having made it to the UK yet, even though it had completed its run in America. The Masters of the Universe toy line came before any version of the cartoon at all, with Lou Scheimer creating the series to fit the action figures, because 80s. Mind you, the animators here, Hibbert Ralph for what it's worth, don't appear to even have had the action figure to work with. Just a very basic description of it. A very, very basic description of it indeed. Which might explain why we barely see him.
Master of the Universe sticker, free in special packs of Shreddies.
A little drop of history. And the start of a massive ESSO investment program that helps keep the economy moving.
At last, a proper advert definitively aimed at the parents, because the kids will obviously have tuned out long before the words "gets the economy moving."
We're spending £1 million a day with British suppliers. We've laid the foundations for a new petrochemical industry in Scotland. Supported 40,000 jobs in other industries. Used research to develop the quality products industry needs. Built some of the finest service stations in Britain. And made ESSO's commitment to quality work as hard for Britain as it works for us. ESSO. Quality at work.
It's a typical 80s investment advert, which a gigantic company brags about the size of its nuts. Little or none of this affects you, but isn't it beautifully shot? High-speed slow-mo, people smiling with their teeth, cogs and gears working. Ain't it grand? You definitely want to buy shares in this. And maybe even use the product if you get the opportunity. Don't go mad or anything.
Quality at work.
Now games. 6 sizzling games on one great cassette.
Video games. At this point, the industry is, of course, just recovering from the great video games crash of 1983. But here in Britain, we mostly kept our nose out of it, because we had our own industry, thanks to the likes of Sir Clive Sinclair. Thanks, Clive. These were the days when the Spectrum and C64 were joint kings, and the home baking scene was going strong. And here's a pretty tasty compilation, all things considered. Take a look.
Lords of Midnight.
Lords of Midnight classic. One of the first 3D games, one of the first multi-genre games. No home should be without one.
Brian Bloodaxe.
Brian Bloodaxe. Not a classic or anything, but a fun platformer, and actually quite funny in places.
Strange Loop.
Strange Loop, highly acclaimed, if not highly bought. Very pretty for 1985.
Pyjamarama.
Pyjamarama, sequel to Automania, second in the famous Wally Week series.
Arabian Nights.
Arabian Nights, again a pretty standard platformer, but still fun.
Falcon Patrol 2.
And Falcon Patrol 2, an influential shoot-'em-up. I refuse to use the term shmup, because it was clearly invented by twats to make more people sound like twats. It's how they reproduce. Anyway, all of them for only £9.
If you play to win and you want to play, Now Games. For the Commodore 64 and Spectrum, only £8.95.
That can't be bad. Admittedly, that's about £27 in today's money, but that's still pretty good for 6 games. Clearly, they have no idea how to advertise these things yet, though, and they're pitching them more or less like musical compilations. The name, Now Games, won't be a coincidence.
For the Commodore 64 and Spectrum, only £8.95.
There's plenty to look forward to this autumn, and it's all in this extra 12-page pullout with TV Times.
I don't really have anything to say about this except check out that rainbow motif. ITV as a monolithic network never had an official logo until the relaunch of 1989, with the regional stations having priority over the name of the network in marketing terms. But they had a few semi-official symbols that they used on occasion, and in most of the 80s it was this, blocky styles, most often seen here, or indeed in the TV Times itself. For this season they hired the Central Presentation Department to do their trademark rainbow-coloured CGI on it, and they came up with this ribbony optical illusion. It actually works better in print in lower resolution than it does on the screen. And that's the way the news goes. There is of course a caveat. This is August the 31st. That's not a great television watching day. It's not bank holiday weekend, but it's the absolute last chance of the year to cram in any summer-related fun. Most of the nation's kids will be in school again by the end of the week. Tomorrow will be September. A lot of people will be returning home from holidays or buggering off for one last day at the beach. And then there's the pull of Mark Curry and blancmange on the other side. It's not prime advertising space, basically, hence the appearance of that cheap filmed poster for the local Reliant dealership. Not to mention, and even more of a giveaway, Look In and TV Times. Two magazines published on behalf of the IPA themselves, and therefore reliable filler material for a commercial break that might be running short. The Look In one in particular was quite blatantly thrown together by YTV themselves in about half an hour, consisting as it did of a single picture and the voice of Redvers Kyle. No doubt a pain in the arse for them to arrange, and it better even registers for the viewer. That's television for you.
Those magnificent men in their flying machine, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. Those magnificent men, those magnificent men, those magnificent men in their flying machine.
You've been watching a Bob the Fish production. Thanks! If you haven't found it already, be sure to check out our website at bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds of videos not unlike this one that will make you laugh, think and realise new things or your money back. Which works out great because they're all absolutely free. All of this is possible thanks to the not unique way that Bob the Fish productions are paid for by you, the viewing public, via Patreon. For a donation of as little as £1 a month, not only do you ensure that I still have food and shelter so I can carry on making these programmes, but you could become eligible for a whole host of cool extras. New video essays, special event live streams, all my content a week in advance, and my book on the history of the BBC, Rule the Waves, chapter by chapter as it's written. And some cake, if you go out and buy a cake and eat it while you're watching. And if you don't want to support on a monthly basis, you can make a one-off donation via Coffee. It all helps stave off scurvy. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.